Hello and welcome to the Cozy Nutty Knitter. My name is Sadia and welcome to my channel. So you want to know how to knit, but you don't know where to begin, how to start. It looks confusing to you. You just see a bunch of needles going up and down and string flying, but it just looks like something you can't do. Actually, you can. I am here to help you out with just some basics just to get you started. This isn't about knitting a project, although you can actually morph it into a project, but this is just to get a basic stitch down and you can move on. You can move forward from that point on. So to get you started, what I like to suggest if you want to start a knitting project is to actually use like a bulky weight yarn, something that's a little thicker. And so what I have here is a Lion Brand Wool Ease Thick and Quick yarn. I love this yarn. I have knitted so many projects with it throughout the years. I love the fact that it is machine washable and dryable, and it knits up rather quickly, which is really, really nice. But anyway, you will see here that it is a super bulky yarn, but you want to know what size knitting needles do you need? Well, it tells you on the package. It'll show you that 13 US needles, 9mm, and also if you want to crochet, there's also the suggestion there. I use that as a guide in order to create the right size stitches that I want, but sometimes depending on the project that I'm working on, I may alternate and use a knitting needle that may be a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, depending on the size stitch that I want. So I have this yarn right here ready to go. And then I do have the corresponding knitting needle. And this is a Takumi US 13 9mm. So it seems that I've got everything that I need just to start. Let's get going. So you want to start your knitting project. A lot of times you will have instructions that will tell you how many stitches to cast on. That's the first thing you're going to do in order to start a project. In your instructions, it will tell you how many stitches to cast on for the size that you need. But if you just want to just start off knitting right off the bat, I do have my yarn here. Let's say I just want to knit a small little swatch here. But I want to cast on 20 stitches. How do I figure that out? Well, I could either, what I'm going to teach you now is a long tail cast on, just kind of gauge for myself and to kind of figure out like how much yarn I actually need to start with. Or since I want to do 20 stitches, I can start and by winding my yarn around my knitting needle 20 times. So let's go ahead and start those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I stopped off at 10 because rather than continuing winding around, let's say I want to do 80 stitches, I would literally fold my yarn the amount of times that I need in order to create the stitches that I need. But I only need 20, so I'm just going to double up the yarn right here. And then I'm going to give myself a little bit more because I'm going to need more of a tail. And so to go ahead and start off by casting on, I'm going to create a slip knot. I just kind of slip it right there through. There you go. And that would be considered your very first stitch. So you're going to take your needle, oops, put it through right there. So in order for me to perform the long tail cast on, I like to keep the rest of the yarn closer to me, and then my working yarn, which is the yarn that's on my skein, to the back. And I will start off by grabbing it, both yarns with both my hands, but then I will use my pointer finger and my thumb and place it inside, spreading the yarns apart, creating like this triangle. Now, to go ahead and start casting on, believe it or not, we already have one stitch on the needle, but we're going to go ahead and twist this needle forward, bring it around underneath, pick that yarn up, bring it around to the back, scoop it up, bring it through, let go, Boom, you've got your second stitch. So let's try this one more time. So bring your thumb up, bring your needle around to the back and under, over to the back yarn, loop it through, bring it through, let go. So now we've got 3. Let's try this again. Under, over, to the back, loop it through. There we go, number 4. Let's keep trying this. And practice does make perfect. I remember when I first saw this, I thought, what the heck am I doing? I'm not going to get it right. And it took me a few tries, but I was able to get it. And eventually you get to the point where you're more proficient and you're able to move more quickly. So let me slow it down again one more time. Swing it around underneath, bring it over to the back, loop, bring it through, let go. So how many stitches do we have so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we need 11 more stitches. Let's keep going. Loop it through, bring it to the back, pull it through. 10. There we go. 11. 12. Oops. 13. 14. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and the last one, 20. There we go. So we have 20 stitches on your needle. You'll notice you'll have a tail left over, which is important because at the end of the project, you want to know like what happens to all the straggler yarns, or you will be sewing those in, which is another thing, but we won't even go there. So now let's go ahead and start knitting. Okay, so now that we have casted on 20 stitches, what we're going to do is we're going to flip the needle around so that the starting end is right over here. We're not going to bother with that. We're going to get our working yarn right here. We're going to get our other needle. Sorry, I can't talk today. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the knit stitch. And what this means is that we're going to take a right hand needle. You know what? Let me go back a little bit. So what I like to do is create a little bit of tension by holding the yarn. Everybody has their own different technique. For me, what I like to do is literally grab the yarn with my pinky, wrap it around once, and kind of grab it with my hand right here. So I have kind of control, but this also gives me a little bit of tension as I'm knitting. And I kind of keep it loose. So to start the knit stitch, you're going to take your right needle. When you're looking at the stitch on the needle, go in from the left through, up and through. And then you're going to take that needle and you're going to wrap it around the back. And then you're going to take what you just wrapped and then pull it right through. And there you go. There is your first knitted stitch. Let's do this again. So we're going to put it in the stitch, going in from the left, going up, wrapping around, pulling it through, boom, number two stitch. Now when you're doing the knit stitch, one thing I forgot to tell you is you want to make sure that the yarn that you're working with is behind. So you don't want it up front like this. That's a different stitch. We'll get there at another time. But to knit, you want it in the back. So let me go ahead and create my tension. Let's do it again. Pull it through, underneath, up, bring it around, pull it through. There you go, stitch number 3. In through the left, up, wrap the yarn around, pull it through, stitch number 4. Let's do it again. Put it in, up, around, put it through. So we're going to continue on until I'm done with the 20 stitches. Okay, so we are almost done with the 20 stitches. We have 3 more left, 18, 19, 20. So we're going to put the needle in, coming in from the left up, wrap it around, wrap it through, left up, wrap it around, pull it through, and then the last stitch, same thing. Whew, now we have completed our very first row. So how do we continue on? We actually flip the needle around and we do the same thing, and we keep going around and around until you have multiple rows. So practice makes perfect. So I'm going to show it to you guys. Bring it through, wrap it around. There you go. There we are. All right. So we are in the process of creating the garter stitch, and I will explain that to you in a while. But I'm going to go ahead and knit a few more stitches to show you what that garter stitch looks like, and so that you understand what's going on. But essentially, when you're doing this, you are knitting. And so if I really wanted to continue on, this would be a way for me to create a very slim scarf or scarf. I'd be knitting on a lot of rows, but you know, let me get to the end here and show you what I do in order to start the next row. All right, there we go. Row number 2 completed. Flip your work around. All right, grab the yarn, and I make sure that when I'm starting that my needle is in front of my working yarn, not behind it, because this is the knit stitch that we're doing. And then bring it in, not this way. This would be the purl way, which I will teach you at another time. But to knit, we go in from the left in and up, and we keep going. And that is basically it for the knit stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and knit a few rows here, and then I will meet you and teach you how to do the purl stitch. You'd be surprised. Okay, so now I have knitted a few rows in the knit stitch, flipping it backwards and forwards. But as you notice here, you'll see that there's a little bumpiness in the rows, and it's reversible. So this is actually a perfect stitch for if you want to knit a blanket, because it actually makes your fabric thicker, or if you want to knit a scarf or something like that. And so by the way it looks is basically called the garter stitch. Now this was the very first stitch that I learned how to do. I just kept knitting around and around and around. And this is all I knew how to do for the longest time. But now what do you do if you want to knit a project where you have that nice knit in the front, which the rows are in V's, and the knottiness is in the back. So in order to complete this, you're going to have to purl. The purl stitch is actually the reversal of a knit stitch. It's like you're knitting the stitch backwards. So the front's going to be a little smooth, and then the back's going to be a little bumpy. So I'm going to show you how to purl. So in order to do that, remember with knitting, we make sure that the working yarn was in the back, and then we went in from the left and up. But we're not going to do that. We're going to do the complete reverse of that. We're going to make sure that the working yarn is in the front, okay, of our needle. And then we're going to go in from the right side and back like this, bring it up this way, and then we're going to take our working yarn and loop it over. Okay, and one more time. We're going to put it in through the right, up, swing it around, pull it through, next stitch. So this is a purl stitch we are working, and we'll continue to do this. Very simple. Make sure your working yarn is in the front. Put it through, up, swing around, pull it back. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but right here, that knit stitch is starting to form on the back side. So let's continue on here. There we go. Oops, I missed that. My yarn's a little tangled here. Okay. Okay, through the left, through, swing your working yarn around, pull it through, and we'll keep doing this. And I will meet you at the end of this row. Okay, we are now down to the last couple of stitches of this row, purling. Once again, through the right, up, bring your working around the yarn, pull your needle back, and there it is. And there we are. So we've completed this row. And it's hard to tell, but you're starting to create that knit stitch. So now what to do if you want to keep that knit stitch? Well, with these 2 stitches, there are a myriad of different patterns you can create. So in order for me to keep it purl on one side, knit on one side and purl on the back side, what I'm going to do on the sides where you see the V's, that's knitting. So in those stitches, I am going to knit. And I will keep that stitch. Oops, slipped off the needle. And I will meet you at the end and show you what happens to the purl side. Okay, so I am down to the last 3 stitches of my knit row, and I will show you what I just did here. So we're done here with this row, and you will see how the knitting stitches are showing. You see the V's going up? There you are. Yeah. So now if you want to keep the knit stitch going, what I do, flip my work around, and these bumps right here are purl bumps, and I will go ahead and purl those. And as I am purling these, it'll create the V on the back side. Here, let me show you. Couple of stitches here, and I'll show you what I've done. There we go. See, and it continues on that way. Isn't that great? Just those 2 basic stitches. That's how you create ribbing, different patterns. It's amazing. So knitting and purling. So if you've ever heard of that terminology, that is what you do. So continue to knit here to the end. So once again, as we're looking to our work, I just finished that row. I have this right here. I did the garter stitch, which is just knitting on both sides. Just performing the knitting stitch on both sides. And then I wanted the stockinette stitch. And so this is the stockinette stitch where you have the V's, or you have it really smooth on one side and bumpy on the other side. So on the side where I have the V's, I perform the knit stitch, and then on the back side, I perform the purl stitch. So now that you've come to the end of your project and you want to cast it off, casting off means that you're going to take your project and work it off the needle. And this is just one method of casting off. There are many, but to start off, I think this is a very good one. So basically what I do is I start off performing the knit stitch because I'm on the knit side. And I knit the stitch. And then I go ahead and knit the second stitch. Okay, now that I have these 2 needle stitches on my needle, I'm going to take my left needle, bring it under the first stitch that I have, bring it over the second stitch, pull it through, boom, I have dropped it. So I have 1 stitch off the needle. So let's do this again. So I'm going to knit through. Okay, so I've done that. And then I'm going to take my needle, bring it over that first stitch, bring it over the second stitch, and drop it, and there it is. I have my second drop stitch. Keep going. Here's the third one. Let me do this slow one more time. So I'm going to perform the knit stitch. And then I'm going to take my left needle, bring it over, and drop it, and there it is. So I have dropped a multitude of stitches. Here we go. Keep doing that, and as you go on, you notice that your stitches are falling off. You can see how your project is complete, and it creates this nice little edge. Okay, I'm going to show this to you again. Perform the knit stitch. Now bring your left needle to the right, bring it over the stitch before, and drop it. There we go. Knit the back stitch, bring it over the first stitch, drop it. All right, we are down to the last few stitches to cast off. Let me do this again. Bring it over. Bring this again. Bring it over. And then last but not least, that final stitch. There we go. Bring that over. And then we are left with this one stitch on the needle. So basically what I do here is I go ahead and I give myself at least a good 6 inches or so, and I cut off my yarn, and then I just pull the yarn through, and there we go. And this is your first knitted project. So here we've learned how to cast on, we've learned how to knit where we created the garter stitch, and then we've also learned how to purl so that we can create the stockinette stitch, which means that you have the V's in the front and the bumps in the back. And then we've also learned how to cast off. You see how neat that looks? So if you were knitting a scarf, you'd be done right now. So I hope you've learned a lot from my video. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me, and I'd be more than glad to answer any of your questions. But I hope you learned a lot from me, and good luck with your new knitting projects. I'm so excited for you.